In today's video, I'm going to share my biggest tip so you can go from idea for a webcomic to published, finished webcomic without getting overwhelmed. Welcome back to Pencils and Stories. My name is Henrike and I make and teach comics. If you want to make your own comics as well, then subscribe to this channel for weekly videos. I distinctly remember starting my own webcomic. It was an incredibly intimidating process for me, and I realized that if I wanted to make a good comic, I needed three things. First of all, the comic itself, which in my case is gonna span over multiple hundreds of pages. Then I needed a website to publish my comic on, because I chose the option of going for a WordPress site where I publish my own comic, and then an audience that reads the comic. These three things are a massive undertaking, and if you've never made comics before, I actually advocate for making short comics at first, because if you do multiple short comics, you can actually figure out the ropes of how to make them, and you can try out multiple styles, and you can figure out how you make comics best. I have a video about making short comics and I linked it in the description below. There's also a notification, if I'm right, in the top corner that you can check that video out if you want to get started with something more simple. But I know that a lot of you have an idea for a longer webcomic. And like I said, my comic is very long as well, and I was very intimidated at first with this entire process because there's like this really big end goal, and how am I gonna get there? So this video is about that. My biggest tip in beating overwhelm is the thing that was a tagline for Pencils and Stories for a long time. The tagline was small steps to more creativity. And that is the thing that has always helped me get out of art block and overcoming overwhelm. Small steps. Making a comic as large as Recollection City is a big goal. It needs hundreds of pages. I needed a website for it. I needed to figure out more about WordPress, and I need to figure out how to bring my audience to my website. It's huge. And if anything, a large goal has one purpose. It helps you figure out what your milestones are, and it helps you figure out what you need to do next. But then when you actually start getting to work, that's where you forget about your big goal. That's how I like to call it. I know a ton of people who have a big goal on a piece of paper. They read it every single day, but then in the end you need to get to work. And there's between the big goal and between your daily work, there's a huge gap. And that's the gap you need to bridge. And then in the end, you can only do one action at a time. And that is why in the moment, right now, all you need to work on your comic is one next step. And usually for a comic, that means doing a step for a page. For example, thumbnail this next page, letter this one page. And even if that is still too big for you, you can even go with panels. Even a page you can break up into multiple steps. So yes, make that big goal, but then keep in mind the use of it. What you don't need is when you're working, having that huge goal hang over you like some looming thing. So what I do is I take my big goal, I break it down until all the steps are bite-sized. And yes, that's a lot of steps, but it really helps me because when I'm working, I completely forget about my big goal. I only focus on my next action and the next thing that I need to finish. And usually that's a page, just one page. So mentally, I put that big goal far into the future where it belongs. I sometimes look at it to get motivated, and then I work my way backwards, because in the end, it's like all these tiny steps become the pathway towards the big goal in the future. If you do one little tiny action every single day, then eventually you're going to end up there. And that's my experience. By just doing a step every single day, eventually my prologue was done. Eventually my first chapter was done. Eventually my website was done. Eventually I had promotional material for putting my comic on the web, putting it on social, making all the images for my website. So work back from your big goal until you have a tiny piece where you can say, this is something I can do right now. That's how you can focus only on what matters. Because in the day-to-day, your big goal only matters for motivation. It doesn't matter for you actually getting to work and knowing what you need to be doing. Next week I will talk more about how you can actually break your big goal down into milestones and smaller and smaller and smaller steps until you have your next action that you can actually actively do. I'm going to make that game plan a visual presentation, and I'm going to make a small workbook to go with it. And if you want to receive that, then I recommend subscribing to my email list this week before next week's video goes live, because when the video goes live, I will send those two things out for free to my email list subscribers. I like making these tiny little goodies that I sometimes send out. I send out weekly inspiration, motivation, extra info about the videos. So if you want to get into all of that good stuff, then subscribe to my email list below in the description. After these kinds of things like PDFs and cheat sheets, workbooks, if I send them out, I will only make them available for a small price in my Gumroad store. So if you want to get that stuff for free, then subscribe this week. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up so I know to make more videos like these. Also, I would love to know if you can already think of a next action for your comic that you can take today. Leave that in the comments below. Again, subscribe to the channel if you like it. If you want your information about making your own comics, hit the bell button to be notified of new videos. And for now, go out and make some comics.